Success. Everything works, hopefully, and people can hear me with any luck. Hello, everyone. We're back. It's Thursday and nearly Easter, if you celebrate it, which is nice. And I'm joined by a smaller team of crack developers. On my left and right are Will and Chris from the open source team at Anchore. We're going to go through and basically do some work, and you can watch us while we do it. We do this most Thursdays, except when I'm not at my desk. You can find everything we do on GitHub in the Anchore org. I'm trying to zoom this in so everyone can see it. The main projects we're going to be dealing with are Syft and Grype, but we may touch some other things as well. We usually do. You can find out more about this and everything else on our discourse. If you just go to anchor.com/discourse, there's a link further down here somewhere. Just go to the open source. There's a link to all this kind of stuff. And we do it all on GitHub in the open. And so I guess we should start. Usually we start with needs discussion, but I'm willing to bet there are none that are tagged needs discussion. There's one. Did we discuss this last week? Oh, hello, by the way, chaps. Hello.
Yeah, I think we did. I think this is the relatively notorious GitHub Actions vulnerability. We
Yes,
previously
we
weren't
did.
including this ecosystem because we weren't sure we'd match on it. And then I think we
Yep.
do now.
Yeah, I don't want you. I don't want to have to force you to go over everything you said last time because that actually turned into like half an hour of us talking about this. So I'll save you.
Yeah,
So that was the only one that was marked as needs discussion, which means I guess it's triage time.
great.
Right, where do you want to start? Start at the top, I think. I think we've probably discussed this before, haven't we? This is 3088 on Syft. I'll paste it everywhere so everyone has a copy. When was the last conversation on this? A while ago. Okay, good. Extract the full description of the license in Python. Okay. Scan an image of Python, and one of the packages a full description of the license. This is notorious, isn't it? The entire license is pasted into that field rather than the SPDX ID or whatever, which is unfortunate. And I think we've had conversations about this on the bug.
Yeah, we have. If you scroll down to my comment, which
This
was
one?
from August 6, 2024, that's the big summary about how the authors have taken to splitting out the different licenses that are in NumPy. Cutting the license off at new line here removes information from the SBOM with regards to we basically don't have the full description of all the licenses and can't get them into their individual values. Long and short, the long fields are ugly and they do bloat the document, but in this case, the value of this license file is as accurate as we can make it without resorting to some kind of specialized parsing on this unique case of how these are separated to the NumPy. So he's basically saying, hey, I want the full description of the license, and we're trying to say, we're servicing the value that gives the most information in the SBOM. And unless we wanted to build a very specific parser for this specific case of how these authors separate and declare their licenses, we're servicing, the best information going forward. If I split this off at new line, then I truncate literally the 11 or 12 other licenses that are in this file away from someone who would want that information. So let's see if that's been accepted from what Weston did. Because if that's been accepted on the Python side, metadata, maybe I can investigate if the NumPy people have gone ahead and updated their metadata to conform to PEP 0639 rather than just pulling the license from this file and having to build a custom parser for it.
Good Lord, the thread on their discourse is 194 posts long.
Yeah, I can run down how the update on if this one has where we are on this one, but
We'll just go straight to the bottom and see.
okay.
It's a long discussion and still going on within the last month or so. There should be an AI button where I just press a button and it'll say, summarize this, please. Yeah, I'm not going to read that. What is it? Bender says, I ain't going to read that. Summarize it in one word.
It's probably not conducive for us to do the work on the live stream currently.
Yes.
But for those who are like following along at home, in the issue, it was suggested to truncate off at the new line value. What we decided against doing that because in this case, when you do the new line value, you're losing information about the multitude of other licenses that are in this NumPy field, or that we're this full thing that we're extracting. So if we were to implement the suggestion, we would be making the SBOM worse in that we wouldn't be giving people the opportunity to decode this field and figure out the licenses going forward.
Is that so? You're specifically saying licenses plural. So that one line can sometimes be multiple licenses in a row, not one license, the whole of the MIT license or the whole of the GPL. It's a list of multiple licenses in one text field.
Yeah, if you go back to where my comment is, and it says more information not in their public GitHub license.txt about what they distribute. But if you actually were to take that full line and separate it out, you would find things like LPAC Lite, Tempia, which is licensed MIT, Dragon 4 licensed MIT, libdivide, lvib, lz.lib. So there are a ton of other licenses that are in that file, that are in that field.
So is it fair to say that what's happening, like if Syft finds a file called like license.txt that we have high confidence is just a copy of the Apache 2.0 license or a copy of the MIT license, we just put the SPDX ID for that license.
Absolutely.
And the SBOM. However, if we find a crazy text file that we are not able to understand, we put the whole text file because it's the only way we have of like sort of losslessly conveying what we found.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And then
full and correct.
Okay. And then what's going on with NumPy is they have a giant text file that lists different licenses for different subdirectories. And so we have a whole copy of that. And it might be nice. There's this provisional like Python improvement project that would give Python packages a machine readable way of assigning licenses to subcomponents. Is that what would happen? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So it sounds like we're sort of doing the best we can here, because somebody might not want to include, like, if there's a license that they don't want to agree with on a subcomponent of NumPy, we would lose that information today if we like split at the new line or something.
We would.
And so the choices are wait for the PEP to be formally approved and for the NumPy owners to adopt it, or write a NumPy license parser in Syft and split it up how we want to.
Which we could do. Yeah, we could do.
Right.
NumPy is extremely common in your dependency list across the entire ecosystem of all things that are used in Python.
Right. That's why, I mean, if it was some random, like, little utility PyPy package, I wouldn't have mentioned that possibility, but I feel like we find NumPy in the wild a lot.
And it's also not all of PyPy. It's not an entire ecosystem. It's a subset of an. So it's not like all Python packages are affected by this. It's only those that are NumPy.
Right, and it might be worth doing, because even if NumPy, like, let's say that for whatever reason tomorrow the Python improvement project or plan or whatever PEP stands for is accepted, and then on Monday the NumPy people merge to main, change adopting to so that they sublicense the stuff. We still need a way to write down in a Syft SBOM that multiple subcomponents of a package have different licenses. And we're still going to find the current versions of NumPy that exist in the wild a lot.
Yeah.
And so it might be worth trying to do the parsing ourselves. I don't think it makes sense to try to truncate this value. And I think if if people are following along at home and we have this huge value and you don't like it, you could try to parse it, or you could try to special case NumPy in your scripts that handle Syft output or something as a workaround in the short term. But does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
Chris, I'm not sure.
No, I'm on board, Will, with the popularity of the package and maybe some kind of short time parsing fix specifically for NumPy, because I think it's been stated before on the stream, just the arc of improvements via PEP and author's willingness to accept it and adopt it and do the work to get it through. That can be anywhere from n amount of months to n amount of years. And so us using our time to offer a band-aid for a very popular package and do like a many to one or one to many of license file to many licenses specifically for this package is not unreasonable. It is something to do.
Right. And then that also, like, if we do it right, it gives us a place to hook in or like PEP 638 or whatever it is parser. I don't know. So it might be it might be worth trying to do that, especially if we can do it without a breaking change to the Syft data model. Or we'd have to do it without a breaking change to the Syft data model, because I don't know if right now there's like one SPDX ID per file, or I don't know exactly what the correct output would look like. Probably offline, we should spend some time thinking about what it would look like to correctly represent this data.
Short term, for those curious, all it is the parser would take this file. We would key and find the license field of the split off for each package. And then we would build like kind of a map that found all of the licenses that had a valid SPDX ID. And then we would associate those licenses both to the package. And the hard part here is, and what we would have to figure out offline, is do we want to associate all of the individual licenses that are under the package dependencies of NumPy to NumPy itself, or do we want to associate just to the packages that they say they're associated to as part of like the dependencies that make it up? And I don't know the correct answer to that.
Yeah, are the dependencies like? Yeah, I don't either. It might depend whether the dependencies are vendored in, right? And so you actually have a copy of the dependency in, or whether they're just referenced, and when you pip install NumPy, pip goes and downloads them and puts them somewhere else. That would probably change my answer. Okay, it sounds like this is a little bit in like backlog needs proposal.
Send it.
Is
Yeah,
that
backlog pile? Yeah, just that we don't need any more input from the author. We understand their pain point as far as the long fields are not desirable. It's currently the only way that we know how to convey all the information we're parsing with Syft over.
Right.
We do want to eventually upgrade how we're conveying this information because of the timeline of license improvements in the Python ecosystem.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to go ahead and say, I think this is probably a feature request, right? Because like the license is, oh well.
Yeah, let's take the bug. Let's take the bug off of it, because I don't think this is currently not like something we can go and correct, right? This is something that we want to enhance, but
so it should be enhancement or feature should be the label.
Yeah.
I don't remember which.
As ugly as it is right now, I would say that this field is working as expected as far as conveying all of the information that we're parsing from this file over the line into the SBOM, which
yeah. And I wanted to take a second to talk about the needs proposal label. That doesn't mean, so what we mean when we say it's in backlog and needs proposal is we say like, we agree that this could be better. We have some idea of how this could be better. And we would love for someone to write down a specific enough suggestion that somebody could try and go and build it. And we don't necessarily need a proposal from our team. So if you're watching and you find this issue frustrating or inconvenient, please feel free to propose something like sort of specific, like to propose a way of representing this situation in our data. You have to be careful of a couple constraints. We don't want to lose information, and we don't want to have to go to Syft 2.0 over this, so we don't want to take a breaking change to the JSON schema. But inside those two things, like if you have an idea for how this could get better, please feel free to propose it on here, and we'll take a look and discuss it in the future.
Shall I unassign you, Chris? It's currently assigned to you. Right, cool. because it might convey the message that you're actually working on this when it's actually in the backlog. So cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for articulating that, Will and Chris. I appreciate that. Right, are we picking one at random?
Send it.
Stereoscope. So this is Stereoscope 387, my favorite coprocessor. Send Stereoscope created OCI layers to a temp directory. So this is someone using Stereoscope as a library, I guess, or they're just snipping the bit of code that they know is at fault. So when an image is read, object extra layers are created in the OCI directory. Not sure what the purposes of extra layers are, but these layers are sent to the temp directory past the image new. Oh, they want them sent to the temp directory. Huh. Okay. So Stereoscope creates a content cache directory. For example, in the above code, it's creating the download directory to image new.
That's really surprising to me. I thought.
Oh, there. Right. Okay. Oh, so it ends up.
Files.
I would have thought.
Signature of new again.
What is this doing? This created layers.
So Stereoscope, in order to be able to scan the contents of an image, essentially does like Docker save, right? So it copies all the images out to. It basically ends up with a tar for each layer, and then indexing the tar. And I think this issue is about where those tars end up. And I don't understand. Maybe this person is calling Stereoscope differently than Syft does, or maybe we're making a bad assumption in Stereoscope, because like when you run Syft, like Syft under the hood asks Stereoscope to fetch an image and unpack it so that Syft can inspect the contents. And then you end up with like under temp, you end up with all these Stereoscope like UUID looking directories that go away on a restart or whatever because they're under temp. And I thought that's working as designed, and I don't understand. I don't understand, like, because if we look at the call he's complaining about, which is sort of halfway through the code sample, that I guess at the end, there's file.new tempdir generator. And I would think that file.new tempdir generator makes a tempdir, and that maybe we just have download under the tempdir. Maybe he has tempdir set to an empty string. Like I don't understand what's going on here. So I'd want to try to play with it a little more. I guess I could try to get this running in a Stereoscope example.
So image
Also,
that's a function in Stereoscope.
Yeah, that's the function that asks Stereoscope to as the function that basically asks Stereoscope to figure out how to chase down this GHCIR, this image, and make a like file system object that Syft can index using, or maybe a file system index that Syft can scan using is a better way of saying it. I think I haven't been in Stereoscope super recently, but let me.
What are you looking at, Chris? Are you looking at the Stereoscope code?
Yeah, so sorry, I've just pulled up an example of how the Syft, the SIF, not Syft, but Syft archiver uses this, the archive provider. And so if you click this code, right, here we use tempdir gen new directory that generates the content cache there that then gets passed to image new. So if you look if you kind of look at the line 60 here, you'll see we use the temp.dir generator to generate the temp directory, and we also pass a directory that was created at that path as well. And so in the user's example, when they say I'm passing download to this, that's saying, okay, I can store and create all these tarballs, these temp files under the download directory, which is not, in his case, not what he wants. I'm still trying to understand what what the request is. Does he want the API simplified so that this is not an option that you can just pass in anything that will bloat and take our archived contents that we're running during Stereoscope, or what is the ask? I would, when an image is read, object layers are created in the OCI directory. I am not sure what the purpose of these, but I asked these layers be sent to the temp. So why? All right, so the OCI directory. So let me look and see if we, at some point during our calls, are just passing what he says the OCI directory is to this call.
What are they calling? What is the OCI?
I don't know what that directory is that he's referencing that we're sending things to that shouldn't be there, but I'm also going to look in Syft at how image.new is used and if we are passing some folder path here that we should not be passing. So obviously. Or if we just have this wrap.
So content cache.dir, this creates a temp.dir gen. Is that a generated like folder name with, you know, maybe a random number in it or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So there's a
temp directory.
So you end up with a temp stereoscope blah, and then inside that is the tar files. But because they've specified the temp generator here, then they're getting a temp file, and then we're generating a temp file within that.
That's correct. In his example, under downloads. But what I'm looking at right now is
I think what might be happening. If we go back to the stereoscope code you were just looking at. So we make a temp directory, right? And then we pass in two arguments, the overall temp directory and a temp directory generator. And I think that in his example, he's passing in just a hard-coded path, right? Download, which so I think stereoscope is, I think that this user is asking the stereoscope API to unpack contents under /download. And like, it's a little bit surprising that we sort of expect a temp. It's a surprising API design choice, I think, that we're accepting a temp tier generator and the name of an overall temp tier. That's weird. I don't know why we don't just accept the temp tier generator and then ask it for the overall name.
I pasted two more code links. It's the OCI tarball provider as well as the OCI directory provider. And this might be what he means when he says to the OCI directory. We generate a new directory called OCI-dir-image for both providers when we're doing any kind of OCI image. And so let me read his issue one more time.
So I've opened it in a terminal on my temp.dir, and in my temp.dir I've got stereoscope -number, and then within that there's OCI tarball image number.
Yep. Right, but these are going to temp tier.
They are.
Right. Yes. And so I think
empty. I don't know. Like, surely they're going to get something called download there, because it's a piece of text. It's not a folder name. It's a piece of text called download. So they're going to get stereoscope number/download, and it's going to be in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get their example to compile and run real quick. It doesn't have any import statements, and so I haven't quite succeeded yet. Where were you seeing the? Oh yeah, OCI tarball image, right? And then
You can see the arguments there for the content cacher for both of those is where is the name of the directory? I just lost it. But it's the one that it confirms it's one that Alan just showed on the screen, that it's under.
yeah. I just don't see the call to image.new in the links you.
I'll try and highlight them better. Sorry.
Oh, that's the tarball image provider. I see. So it's the directory provider has temp tier gen and the temp tier.
Yep. So you're correct. The tarball provider has OCI-tarball-image, and then for the other one, which is the directory, has, I think it's the same. TMP. Yep. OCI-dir-image. And those are both passed as the content temp dir. But I agree with you, Will. It's a surprising API design that we're generating a directory under the temp dir and passing a temp dir generator, because I guess the image does need to be able to generate more. But I'm wondering what the user's concern is here when he says it bloats the OCI image directory.
Yeah, I'm really confused. I don't quite understand what they expected to happen. It seems like maybe the API parameters could be a little bit. I think he's just like, maybe we could document it better, but this comment makes it seem like he told Stereoscope to create. I don't know. I think it's a weird call pattern, but I think it sounds a little bit like the image.new API is confusing because you're passing in a temp dir generator and the name of a temp dir, and doing so doesn't behave the way this user expected it to.
Right.
I don't know what to do about that because I'm not sure how the user expected it to go. Because it seems like there's two complaints. Like, the stereoscope created layers bloat the size of the OCI directory. In the example, right, the example assumes that a directory named download exists because he told Stereoscope to use a directory named download. Okay, he's expecting it to.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I see. When they say layer, they're not talking container layers. They're talking directory layers. Because I think what they're getting is the top level OCI, the top level directory, then one called download, then a directory called GHCRIO, then one called FluxCD, then another one called notification controller, and it's all down the bottom in there.
I don't think so.
Because they pass the name.
Right. But I don't think. I think they wish we did that.
Oh.
Like, if you go back and read it, because he says, like, the OCI directory should be created using ORAS. This will create 3 extra layers at the base of the download directory. And I don't, like, Stereoscope is not meant to be ORAS, right? So ORAS is like OCI registry as storage, which is basically a way of putting, like, tarballs in Docker registry. So I don't know. I think he's expecting Stereoscope to behave more like ORAS than it does, but I don't know why he's expecting that or what isn't working. So I'm a little confused.
Also, I want to ask him to include like a full correct Go script with all the imports that he's using. I know where some of these come from, but I want to make sure we're.
Yeah, I've got most of them, but it's a little hard. Like an import called V1 could sort of be
I think it's
anything.
I think that was the CIV one. That's the same one that we
Yeah, right. And then
layout is what we're using. Layout path is failing to be found, but I think I know where. Oh, that's just never mind. That's the actual variable. We're good. OCI spec, I've got that one. Okay, we need to get this to run.
Is that fair?
Yeah, seems good. Yeah, because we want to figure out if when he says layers, if he's talking about the ontology you're saying, Alan, or if he is saying seeing 3 unexpected random tarb layers being
right.
extracted because of this. Because like one of those is one kind of bug, which is the ontology. The other is another kind of bug where bytes from nowhere mysteriously appearing, in our temp directory, and we want to figure out which one this is.
Cool. Thanks, chaps. That was great. Right. What else shall we look at? Oh, I think we've talked about this one before, haven't we? And we didn't get a conclusion. This one is, let me just see, did we reply? Yeah, we did last week. Okay. That's breaking change, enhancement, heading for 1.0. It's already got a milestone. What's that, backlog?
Yeah, backlog's good because I think this is going to be part of our next Grype discussion when we're heading towards 1.0.
This one is the one that myself and Keith were looking at earlier. This is Syft 3800. We both looked at this. So this is a user running Syft, and the image that they're using, this thing, is large, 8 gigabytes, and contains a desktop operating system which has Flatpaks, and they use this directory structure which has lots of tiny files in it, and it seems to consume quite a lot of memory when it's doing this. I noticed over 8 gig of RAM being used while running this on my workstation, so I'm not surprised that it blows up for them in the machine sometimes.
And I think this is also so right now, in order to be sort of reasonably performant, Stereoscope constructs an in-memory index of the file system. This is an 8 gig image with 74 layers, which probably means it's running out of RAM by running out of RAM. Right. Like I'm not, and so I think that, Keith has said some stuff about like trying to really optimize that. But I think right now it's sort of a limitation of Syft that if you can't fit a meaningful percentage of the size of the Docker image in main memory, you can't scan the image with Syft. That is something we would like to improve. But if you have 8 gigs of RAM and a 10 gig image, you're gonna have a hard time. Maybe it's possible to use some swap space or something.
Yeah, no, it's just to Will's point. The limitation on Syft is that we are relying so much on the in-memory destruction.
Yeah. And we have found some. It looks like like Keith created a memory profile, which is awesome. But Yeah, so I think, so I think it's related to maybe some stereoscope performance improvements. It's also related to a discussion we've had on here a couple times, which is that we would love to sort of wrap the SBOM builder in something that can page to disk, right? So that instead of having a purely in-memory index of the 8 gig 72, um, the 8 gig 72 layer image, which is just going to be a big data structure, and there's not really any great way to make it not be a big data structure. Um, if if we had the way to like maybe represent the index as a SQLite database that we could serialize to disk as we built it and then query it or something like that. That's sort of a toy example for now, although it might actually work. Um, so that's like sort of a longer term improvement we might be interested in taking. It would be especially helpful for making a scan of the server you're on. That's another place where people complain about out of memory is you're like, I have this CI server with 200 gigs of build artifacts and I run Syft dir root on it and it just dies. And so we'll see. What we can do. So I think there's going to be some incremental performance improvements in Stereoscope that Keith is working on. And eventually we would love to have a sort of configuration knob where you can use you can get a you can use more hard drive and less RAM in response in exchange for a slightly slower scan. Right now, that knob is just stuck all the way to the go as fast as possible and use as much RAM as possible, which sometimes makes out of memory errors. I don't know that I have a ton more to figure out here. Oh, Dive is still working on it. This can take a while for large images. That's fair.
My poor CPU is.
This isn't on the. Is this is on the computer that's not running the stream? Right?
No, this is on the one that's running the stream, and I'm.
We've done it again.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
stop
okay. We're gonna have to Control C that, or
is there another?
Maybe.
I think there might actually be another copy of Dive running somewhere else on this machine. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
No, but I did have a copy of GDB running on. Anyway, I'll stop that. So, yes, that is a great summary of the situation. We kind of need to be able to give the opportunity to not fill the RAM, but that's a challenging solution, really, isn't it?
No, I mean, I really like Will's suggestion of converting the image into some kind of SQLite queryable structure. But it just necessitates one more dependency or one more thing on the machine. But it would really, that would be the facade by which we would want to do these kinds of queries to help build the SBOM. In my perfect world, I'm just imagining like a smart Syft that sees how large the image that you're trying to scan is and then picks between the two methods like as fast as possible.
Yeah.
The SQLite facade. Because we might have mentioned it, like use some of disk on this call, but I don't foresee a solution where we do like some kind of hybrid thing until after we have both either or nailed down.
So yeah, we know this is a bug. There isn't really a quick solution to this, really, is there? Because it's just a monster image.
No, I think, is he
Build smaller images. EU OS base demo. I guess it does have to be a large image.
This is going to happen for all of the modern immutable things based on Flatpak and OS tree. Scanning any of those containers is going to do this. I mean, when I ran Dive earlier, if you filter the directory and just show the sysroot folder, it's enormous, like thousands of tiny files or random size files. And yeah, it's a lot for Stereoscope to hold.
We also have a thread on Discourse about scanning whole VMs.
Yes.
Let me see if I can find it. Uh, oh, look, my most recent search is scanning whole VMs.
It is. This topic is coming up more often, though, isn't it? And I guess that's because people are making more and more of these chunky containers, and this is reusing a technology that does that, and so
Right.
it's going to be more common, I guess.
Right. And I think like containers, like sort of the like sort of standard use of containers for a long time was like we have like 12-factor app microservice, right? Like there's a single Rails app in this Docker image. There's a single Spring app in this Docker image. And then it's like, oh no, my workstation is in this Docker image. Like I have a friend who was doing security somewhere, and they're concerned about developers using untrusted tools, and so developers like they have like blessed container images that run your IDE and your compilers and stuff, and you can't get to the data from outside those, which is an interesting idea because they don't want somebody's like janky VS Code plugin stealing secrets. Not to throw shade on any particular um, any particular setup. It's just the point I'm trying to make is merely that like big images are becoming like more of a thing. Also, like machine learning AI images tend to be huge, especially if they include any amount of data.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
So unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that one. I've left a comment. I don't know that there's any status change other than, well, I mean, it is a
yeah.
bug. I mean, technically, it's an enhancement, I guess, because we want to enhance the way.
Is there a performance label?
Oh, we might have to make one.
You can search.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably worthwhile because somebody might look for all the performance issues because performance issues tend to be related. And then it's kind of related to the stereoscope issue. Yeah, I'm not sure what status to put it in. Could put it, yeah, maybe just leave it and move on. It'll come up again if we do that because the triage is like things that have no status, but I don't have a better status for it off the top of my
Well,
head.
I mean, it's in the backlog. It's not something anyone's doing right now, right?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Cool.
Okay.
Right, let's do
Backlog.
one more. Fingerprint file. What's this all about? So this is in Syft, and it is Syft. Oh, it's a new one. 3809 from Tim. I'll paste it in there, and I'll paste it in there. So what is this? I'm trying to run tests on a local fork I'm working on. I received this. Creating a fingerprint from non-Docker fixtures. Following parts are missing or have no content of corresponding fingerprint files. What is a .fingerprint file?
So we use those for caching. Go ahead, Will.
No, you go ahead.
So the .fingerprint files are used for caching large images. So basically when we want to build a set of test fixtures or test images that Syft knows how to catalog things against, rather than rebuilding those images over and over and over again, we have these fingerprint files that it goes and looks at and says, if the integrity of some Docker file or some content of fixtures has not changed at all, I don't have to rebuild these. I just can keep them on my machine. I can look up via the fingerprint to find the image it's associated with and do and run my test against this. This tells me that something in the build cycle has gotten a little out of whack to where the normal make test doesn't know how to recover from the state that we're in here. There are a couple commands that you can run in Syft that will help you get through this. Let me find them real quick.
Is there a reason not to just remove all the fingerprint files, or do we have a command to remove all the fingerprint files, or to
Yeah, I've never had to remove them, but there might be a command to do that. There is make fingerprints, which you can look under the task file, build fixtures, download test fixture cache, upload. Okay.
So what they're saying is they cloned Syft. They branched the Syft source code it looks like from 1.17 a while ago, they're doing some changes and they haven't merged back in from master, I guess, or main, and something sort of out of whack in between then and now.
It looks like from their old branch to their new branch, they pulled in some changes to .NET, and because some things have fingerprints, but the .NET fixtures don't have them. Let's see what Keith said. Get clean DF. I wouldn't do. Okay, I would take Will's comment, and I'll write this down, and we can post the fix to Mayor. I would delete basically test fixtures /star/star.fingerprint. Just get rid of all of them. I would get rid of cache.fingerprint, and let me link you the paths. So let me get those for you. And I'll link them in our Zoom, and then you can have them ready to go. Task file Syft. Boom, 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 boom. I'm finding the code for this fixture. Refresh fixture.
I think there's a make clean. I think there's a make target for this rather than telling people to manually delete things.
All I have is refresh. I don't see anything to remove these.
So if you look in clean cache, in the task file YAML, there's a task called clean cache, clean-cache.
See that one.
Yeah. So if you look at that one, that runs make clean in every test fixture that has a make file. And make clean in the make file I looked at deletes the .fingerprint file. So I think they just need to run make clean cache and then run make unit again. It might take a moment, but
okay, we can go with that one. I just didn't see where. I just didn't see where make -c dir clean. I'm looking at the make file. I don't even see a clean target anymore in the task file. So that was.
It's not. It's in the sub make files.
There's separate make files in each test fixture.
There are make files in each test fixture directory, and they define a target called clean that cleans up that test fixture. Actually, it just does rm-f fingerprint file. But yeah, so that's I think the intended mechanism is make clean cache. That's not. Yeah, maybe this is maybe this is one of the ones we're thinking about, but. Is this in a directory that has test fixture in the path? It is not. So this is not a relevant make file.
Okay.
So if we go back to the task file .yaml, and we go to the task clean cache, then you could see for dir in find type D name test fixtures do if dir makefile then. And so let's look in some test fixture directories.
Right. It'll remove the cache.fingerprint file.
Right. And so if you look at this one, so see how it has a clean target. And so what it's doing, like all our test fixtures have a little make file that basically knows how, so this is designed to save you from having to rebuild your test fixtures every time. So basically this takes a SHA sum of all the inputs to this particular test fixture and writes it to a fingerprint. And then it doesn't rebuild the fingerprint unless it changed. But the error case is that there's a fingerprint file, but not all the stuff. I'm not sure how that happened.
Someone was clearing up big files, maybe, or
maybe.
Yeah.
Or you got rid of your Docker cache, or all your images have gone away. The fingerprints don't know.
That's
right. And so,
especially if there's some time delta between you start doing this and now, that's very plausible.
Right. So I'm fairly certain that make clean cache is the answer, and so we don't need to. Yeah. And I think this is probably mostly from having a workspace that predates this mechanism or something. I don't know.
I would also just say if cleaning the cache, if make clean cache, and then you try to rebuild everything again, you still run into this error. The specific error in this issue is the following paths are missing or have no content. So under that explicit, that path, test fixtures dash cache, make sure that that folder, like test fixtures slash cache, is just deleted, because when you do the rebuild, it'll create the cacher and then put everything under it. And I'm not sure, I don't know the specifics of if that cacher already exists, if it will go and put things under it or not. Like I don't remember having
Yeah.
that. So just make sure that
Yeah.
that path is cleaned out completely. The one that's specifically giving you fits.
Yeah.
Good enough?
Yeah, I think that's fun. We should probably have, I don't know if we have make clean cache in the developing.md, but it might be worth like putting that in.
No.
We could just, no, okay. It might be worth, like, you can assign the issue to me and I'll go through and I'll update developing.md to suggest, like, hey, if you have weird test fixture errors,
Clean cache.
oh, I was just going to use that issue. You could just assign that issue, his issue to me, and I can use it so that we're not making too many issues.
Sure thing.
And just be ready, and then it's good to know. Perfect.
Nice. That's a great way to end the stream, I think. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've done
sounds
well
good.
there. Sweet. Thank you, chaps. I appreciate that. And thanks for all the knowledge sharing that you do on this. And I hope you both have a wonderful weekend along with everyone who is watching. And we'll see you next time. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks a lot.